Hi, Intro to Calc. Today's lesson is 5.3, Part 1, the product rule.
Hi everyone, so 5.3 part 1 is the product rule, and we have done adding and subtracting of functions, and when you find the derivative, when you're adding or subtracting functions, you take each of them separately and then either add them or subtract them. The derivative of a product of functions is not the product of just the derivatives. So there's a little rule when we do this, which is why it's called the product rule. So if we have d dx of f of x times g of x, which means we're taking the derivative of this function f of x times g of x, what it's going to be equal to is the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. Okay, so say that again with me. The first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. Another way that you will often see this written as is d dx, and lots of calc books uses the letter u and v. And you'll notice that I add an extra long tail to the u because if you're writing quick, sometimes u's and v's look similar. And that's the same thing as saying the first times the derivative of the second plus the second times the derivative of the first. So uv prime plus vu prime. And again, that's a little bit quicker way to know how to do them. Example number 1. Our first example, A, if we have y is equal to the product, multiplication, of 7x cubed minus 5x plus 3 times 4x minus 9, what we're going to think of this as this first whole thing, 3 terms, 7x cubed minus 5x plus 3, we're going to think of that as u, and then the 4x minus 9, that's going to be v. So again, u is y prime is equal to u times v prime plus v times u prime. Okay, so we're going to take the first is going to stay exactly the same. Keep everything in parentheses. 7x cubed minus 5x plus 3 times the derivative of the second. Using the power rule, there's an invisible 1 here. So I'm going to take this exponent, kick it out in front. So it's 4. And then if we subtract 1 from the 1, you have x to the 0, which is just going to be 4. And the derivative of any constant is just 0. Plus the second term, 4x minus 9, times the derivative of the first thing. So what is the derivative of 7x cubed minus 5x plus 3? Again, you're going to use the power rule. 3 times 7 is 21. X, 1 less than 3 is 2. Minus 5, and then there you go. So now you have done all of the hard work using the product rule. Now all that's left is to do FOIL and the distributive property. So after I distribute this forward to all 3 terms, y prime is equal to 28x3 minus 20x plus 12. And again, we're going to have to FOIL here, plus 84x3 minus 20x, first terms, outer terms, inner terms, minus 100, oh, there should be 20x here, minus 189 x squared plus 45. Very good. And then the very last thing is just to combine like terms. So our final answer, y prime is equal to x cubed, 112, x cubed, squared, that's the only one squared, so minus 189 x squared, minus 20x, so minus 40x, and then 12 and 45 plus 57. There you go. So it's not too difficult. You just have to remember the product rule is a mix of product rule rules and power rules. Example 1b, we have f of x is equal to 3x squared minus 7x plus 1 times 7x minus 6 plus 2x cubed. All right, so the first thing that I love to do is to reorganize this so it's an exponent from greatest to least. So we're going to start off with f of x is equal to, the first term is already in correct form, so 3x squared minus 7x
plus 1. All the exponents are greatest to least. Now I'm going to rearrange them so it stays the same value but just a different order. 2x cubed plus 7x minus 6. Perfect. So again, this is my u, the 3x squared minus 7x plus 1, and then the 2x cubed plus 7x minus 6, that's my v. So again, when I do f prime of x, finding the derivative, it's uv prime plus vu prime. Okay, again, that's the quick notation for the product rule formula. So let's go ahead and now actually do it. The first is going to stay the same, 3x squared minus 7x plus 1 times the derivative of the second. Going to kick that 3 out in front, so 6x squared plus 7 plus the second term, 2x cubed plus 7x minus 6 times the derivative of the first, 6x minus 7. Again, it's kind of long. There's a lot of work going on, but again, we're following the same pattern, uv prime plus vu prime. Now we're just going to FOIL and do the distributive property again here. So f prime of x. I'm going to take this 3 and multiply it to both of those. So 3x squared times 6x squared is 18x to the 4th. 3x squared times 7 is 21x squared. Negative 7x times 6x squared is minus 42x to the power of 3. Negative 7x times 7 is minus 49x. And then 1 times both of these, so plus 6x squared plus 7. Good. Now we're going to do the same idea over here. 2x cubed times 6x is going to be plus 12x to the 4th. 2x cubed times 7 is negative 14x to the power of 3. 7x times 6x is plus 42x squared. 7x times negative 7 is minus 49x. And negative 6 times 6x, negative 36x plus 42. And negative times a negative is a positive. Awesome. So now we're done with all of the hard work. Last but not least, combine like terms. F prime of x is equal to, here's an x to the 4, here's an x to the 4, so 18 plus 12 is 30x to the 4. We have negative 42x to the 3, negative 14x to the 3, minus 56x to the 3. 21x squared, 6x squared, 42x squared, plus 69x squared. Negative 49x, minus 49x, minus 36x, minus 134x. And then 42 plus 7 plus 49. All of that work, and now we have the derivative of that original function. And again, this seems like a lot of work, but imagine doing the limit process when you had to plug in the x plus h and trying to do all of that canceling. That would have been a nightmare. So this is a nice shortcut in order for us to figure this out. All right, and our last example for today is example 2. If h of x is equal to 6x times g of x, and it's known that g of 3 is equal to 5 and g prime of 3 is equal to 2, we have to find h prime of 3. So meaning we have to find the derivative of h and then plug 3 in it. So if this is our function, again, it's the product. So this 6x is going to be u. This g of x is going to be v. We're going to use the product rule. So h prime of x is equal to uv prime plus vu prime. Again, using the derivative. So h prime of x, the first function is 6x times the derivative of g of x is g prime of x, plus the second function, g of x, times the derivative of the first function, which is just 6. Since we now want to find h of 3, we're going to plug 3 in for x. So h of 3 is equal to 6 times 3 times g prime of 3 plus g of 3 times 6. So I'm just going to recopy this, and now I'm going to do a substitution. G prime of 3 is 2. So we have 6 times 3 is 18 times 2, plus g of 3 is 5. 5 times 6. H prime of 3 is equal to 36 plus 30. Hold on. 18 times 2 plus 30. H prime of 3 is 66. Nice job. You guys are done.